First of all, Marjorie has amazing credentials, and I won't run through all of them, but she is a Penn State graduate. She is a Robert Rauschenberg Fellow. She was a Smithsonian staffer, and most importantly, she is one of our very valued docents at the Cleveland Museum of Art. So, with no further ado, I'd like to have Margie start. She is very happy for people to please ask questions during her presentation. So if you're familiar, you can use the chat little hand raiser or the thumbs up. And if you're not comfortable with that, please feel free to put your question in the chat and I'll be monitoring that. So any questions? All right, Marjorie, take it away.
Thank you so much, Carolyn and Kathy, for inviting me today and to give up some time on this absolutely gorgeous Sunday. When I was asked what I wanted to talk about, I was, of course, thinking about the Cleveland Museum of Art, where I have been a docent for the past 3 years. When I retired from teaching art in a public school, I decided where in the world would I want to spend my time most of all, and our museum is just, it just puts me in a whole different mindset, a whole different feeling, the smell, the feel, the look. It's such a special place. I went on Friday. I haven't been there in over a year, and it's great. Many of you are feeling up to going. It's quite special. Just make an appointment. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to include, I wanted to include some of my favorite things. And as I was making a list of them, I was going, well, wait, that one is one of my favorites, and that one is one of my favorites. It was really, really hard for me to streamline it. I did pick out 14. Some I just couldn't say no to, but there were still others that I really wanted to include. It's the kind of thing, and this happened for me, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. I took a high school group to the art museum for a tour, and the docent that was leading us around showed us a painting of two brothers, and it was a portrait, and it was like from the late 1800s, and it was a painting that I always walked past, never gave it two moments to look at it. And she had the students and myself standing in front of this painting, and we were just looking at it and describing it. And the more I looked at it, I have two sons, and they're always goofing around. And the painting had one of the older son had his arm on the younger brother, and they both looked so angry. Like, why in the world are we standing here? Probably took days and maybe weeks for them to have their portraits painted, and getting so angry, I'm sure, at their mother for getting them into this. And it resonated with me that this was like my sons when I would tell them to stay still and have a photograph taken. So what I'm saying is, the more you engage with a piece of artwork, one generally finds something interesting, which brings me to the whole idea that there have been many studies about how long a person spends in front of a piece of artwork. The Metropolitan Museum said it was 32.5 seconds. Other studies have said 17 seconds. Usually people, and I'm to blame, you are too, that we go to a museum or a gallery and we just walk past, and then we look at the nameplate and we see who did it and check, oh yeah, I know that that was the person, and then just keep walking. But if we really spend time and develop a dialogue, a relationship with a piece of artwork, it opens up all kinds of new meanings. When I was teaching in schools or museums, I often would present children with a piece of artwork that I was basing my lesson on. And at the very beginning, I would say, okay, thumbs up or thumbs down if you like it or you don't like it, before we even talk about anything. And many of the children said that they didn't like it. And then I had them discover things about the artwork. We looked at the principles of art. We looked at the elements of art. We talked about what was going on, what things they saw in the picture, different modes of breaking apart this piece of artwork. Then they would do, I teach them a little bit about the artist, and then they would do some interpretation on this piece of artwork. And so after a week, or it depends if it's an everyday class or once a week, I would ask the students again at the end, how many of you like this? And at least 3/4 of the students by that time said that they liked it because they found something in it that made them really look. So I do have, and I could do this another time, or if we have time, I do have lots and lots of strategies that I use on tours to help people get interested and to talking about art. And I'll bring up a few as we're going. So the Cleveland Museum of Arts opened in 1916. There were 4 wealthy men who decided, gosh, New York has a great museum, and Boston has a great museum, and Cleveland, by George, we should have one too. And so they donated money. And one of the people was Jephthah Wade II, who donated the land. And so, we have Wade Oval named after him. I'm going to talk about him a little bit later on. And they started with 15 galleries, and one of the first galleries was the Armor Court. And it was because one of the industrialists worked with steel, and he said, wouldn't this be a wonderful exhibit for my workers to come to with their families on Sundays? They could come and see other kinds of things, beautiful things that were made with steel. So that is our museum. Any questions? Nope. Okay, I'm gonna go on now, and I'm gonna show you a few of my favorite things. And it says my internet connection is unstable. Okie doke. All right, this is the first piece that I'm going to show you. It is a lekathos, and a lekathos is a Greek vase. This is from 2,500 years ago, a Greek container. They have about 25 different kinds of Greek containers made out of clay, made out of terracotta, and each one serves its purpose. They have ones for wine, they have ones for water, they have ones for oil, and this one is a funerary oil piece. It's very special because if you see it in the belly, pottery has a neck, a mouth, a foot, and a belly. And on the belly is this white, it's white, and usually it's red or it's black. And they have stories and telling with figures and telling stories on the belly. So this one is white, and it's not only that it's white, and the white is from a white slip, a thin clay that was painted on this part of the vessel, and it was never fired though. So when something is fired, it really becomes impregnated into the clay, but this was just put on it. It was not meant to be used every day. It was used for a funeral, a funerary a container. And so there are very few. Cleveland is very lucky. We are one of the only museums to have one of these. And let's go into it now. It's working so far, so good. Hopefully. If you're looking at this right now, if you Google any piece of artwork at our museum, you'll see this information sheet that will show up. And it's a really good thing for you to do if you're interested. For instance, you could just put in Greek pottery and different ones will show up. It'll tell you where it's located, if it's on view or not view, it'll describe it. Sometimes it has little videos included. And if you look right here, every piece of artwork in the museum, and I didn't know this until I was a docent there, has, well, this one says it's the Leonard Hanna Jr. Fund, but it has the year 1966.114. That means it was purchased or acquired in some way in the year 1966. And of that year, this was the 114th item that we got. So that's just a little interesting thing to look at. I'm going to look up, we're going to look at this a little closer now. Most Greek vases tell stories. And this story right here I love to show this particularly to my students, is of a woman, and she's the heroine. Her name is Atalanta, and Atalanta is a Greek myth, and she was a strong, powerful young woman, and her opposition to marriage. Her father desperately wanted her to get married, and she said, no, no, I don't. I want to see the world, Dad, which it makes her so contemporary. And her father said, no, you have to get married. And she said, I don't. And he said to her, you know what, please. And she said, I'll do this. I'll have a foot race, which is what they called races back in Greek time. She said, I'll have a race, and if any guy can beat me, I'll marry him. But I don't think anybody's going to beat me. So there was Aphrodite sent her son Eros to be in a race with her. And you can see that she's moving. And this is just an exquisite line drawing. It's just beautiful. The detail, the folds of her dress, we can tell that it's thin linen because we can see through it. And she's grabbing up her hem because so that she can run. And there are three eroses depicted on this. So yeah, it's just beautiful. So let's go into this. And so she's in the middle of this race and she's winning. Pretty cool, she's winning. And so Aphrodite sent to Eros 3 golden apples. And he placed the golden apples as she was running because she was winning. And she was so taken by these gold apples that she stopped and she paused and she looked at them. And lo and behold, Eros won and she lost the race. But she always thought that was really nice of him because he said, you know what, Atalanta, I know that you really want to see the world. So I'll tell you what, you go see the world. And at the end of it, if you want to marry me, I'll be here for you. And she thought he was such a mensch, that he was so good. She said, great, that's wonderful. She said, all right, I will marry you. And I just wanted you to look at this little top right here. It's just really beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one, hopefully. And go back to this. No, that's not doing it. I'm trying to go on with my slides. And I guess let's, no. There, okay. Okay, I don't know if any of you have gone into the medieval section where there are tapestries and illuminated manuscripts. If you haven't, I beg of you to go and see them. They are just exquisite. The colors are so beautiful, so vibrant. This is from the Book of Hours. It's around 1470 from Rouen, France. And this is small. Women at that time had something called a Book of Hours, and it had their devotional prayers in them. But they are so exquisitely done. It's done on vellum, which is animal skin. It's ink, tempera, and gold leaf. And if you are interested in this, I suggest that you go look up Getty manuscripts from the Getty Museum in California. They have a great YouTube, like a 5-minute one, showing how these manuscripts are made. There are also a lot of Hebrew manuscripts. There are music manuscripts. And let me go into this so you can see it a little closer. I'm sorry, it's taking time, but here we go. they're just beautiful. It's gold leaf that is rubbed in, the letters, the exquisite animals and people that are in here, the handwriting. It is, they're just, the gold, particularly in the lighting where the rooms are, where these are displayed, it will just, what takes my breath away. I just find it beautiful. So. Okay, here's another one of those paintings that I used to walk right past until I learned a little bit more about it. It's called Hunting Near Hartenfels Castle. It was painted in 1540 by Lucas Cranmer the Elder. And it was painted for the Hartenfel family to show their home, which is right here, their castle. And they wanted to show how fancy and aristocratic they were, that they had these wonderful hunts, beautiful, beautiful hunts. So first of all, once you start looking at it, it reveals so many interesting things. First of all, the green is absolutely gorgeous. The different textures of green between the trees and the ground. And then when you start looking closer up at it, first of all, we're going to look right here. This is Mr. Hattenfeld, and he has the crossbow. This painting is chock full of so many real things. You could actually see the weapons that were used. He's got a knife in here and here. He's got the crossbow. Look at the gorgeous clothing that they're wearing in such detail, the grasses. And here are only two of the dogs, but there are so many different hounds in this painting. And the stags that are there. One of the things that I really, really love about this piece of artwork is right here, another feminist touch. Here is Mrs. Hartenfeld, and she has a crossbow in her hand, and she is doing the ceremonial first killing of the day. And they always leave it up to the woman. So I love that. I loved her clothing, her hair, all the details are just really, really beautiful. The painting is divided into three. Look at the different kinds of hounds, different dogs. There's so many different varieties. Who knew that they had that many back then, and that somebody documented them is just wonderful. They show how the dogs are subduing the animals, and then the people can shoot them more easily. There are three different hunts here. There is the boar hunt, the stag hunt, and the bear hunt. And on each one of these three areas, this one is the oops, sorry about that, I'm probably making people nauseous. The horses, the stag, and here's the bear. Okay, so let's go back. Such attention to detail. And it's fun to have students look and see how many different kinds of animals they can see and all the different activities involved. Okay, we're now moving to a gallery, and I have three pieces of artwork in this gallery, and it's called The Gilded Age and Realism. And the first one I'm going to show you is by John Sloan. It was painted in 1912, and he is a member of the Ashcan School. If you're familiar with that, the Ashcan School was a group of New York artists who didn't want to paint aristocracy or people with money. All they wanted to do was catch a glimpse of a person in action during their workday, during an average person. They wanted to show the grit and grime of New York City. This one is painted outside of a tenement house. The woman right here, and I'll go in a little bit closer. One of the interesting things about this painting is the title. that when I talk about it with people, we always get a good chuckle out of it. It's called woman's work. Could you imagine somebody in this day and age doing a painting and calling it woman's work? Maybe if she was like the CEO of Amazon, it would be okay. But to show woman's work doing laundry, I mean, how ridiculous is this? Here she's got a clothespin in her hand. She's right in the act of doing an everyday object. She's not in fancy clothes, but you know, she doesn't look poor. It's a working class tenement house. Now, John Sloan, she didn't even know he was painting her because his apartment, the rear window was overlooking at this woman doing her daily work. And if you look at it from far away, you can tell that it's laundry. But once you get up close, he was very touched by the Impressionists, as many of the artists were in the early 1900s. And so it was that loosening up of brushstroke we saw from the one from Lucas Cranch the elder. It was very tight and very precise. Brushwork is now becoming much, much looser. So this was just a slice of life. We're going to see another slice of life at the same time. This painting, it is a painting of Dora Wheeler. It's in that same gallery, and when you first walk in, this is on a wall by itself. And unfortunately, this slide does not show its true glory. This yellow backdrop is so gorgeous. You almost feel like you need sunglasses. It is just dazzling, particularly compared to that rich royal, this jewel-like blue dress that this woman is wearing. This woman's name is Dora Wheeler, and Dora Wheeler is looking straight at us. This was an unusual pose for a woman. They usually were not looking straight out at the audience, which portrays for that we know that she's bold and she's strong and she's very sure of herself and she's very comfortable with herself, and she will just sort of take on any man. Now, Dora Wheeler is an artist herself, and she wanted to paint and to learn how, and she was turned down from many painting schools till she came across William Merritt Chase, and he said he would be very happy to have her as a student. He then went on to paint this portrait of her, and you can tell he knows a lot about her personality because, as I said, he has painted her as a very strong woman. Now, there's some interesting things about it. This beautiful tapestry that is in the background was made by Dora Wheeler. She and her mother were the very first women to have a successful decorating company. It was one of the first businesses that was run entirely by women. So she was a force to reckon with. And this background was probably a piece of silk that she had that she painted on and she hand embroidered. And if we look at it over here, you can see there's a cat chasing a ball of yarn. There's some butterflies over here. There's some flowers. She had this home decorating store with her mother, where very wealthy New Yorkers would go to decorate their homes. And one of the things that would have been something that she sold was this beautiful ceramic vase. The other thing is that William Merritt Chase, who painted her, also loved to do still life. So he incorporated that in there, but you can see this strong face that she has. She's a serious woman. Well, I'm trying to Well, any suggestions?
What's it not doing?
Click on my homepage.
You're trying to. And
No. Well,
go back to the beginning, maybe and just scroll through to the one you want to be at.
I'll do.
Try that. We'll wait. We're not going anywhere.
Well, I'm in present mode.
Can you click on the slides and, oh, okay, keep clicking.
Through.
There you go.
There, see?
Getting a review. So what I like to do is have students make up stories about the different paintings that are near each other. For instance, I have them make up a story about women's work and not Dora Wheeler, that's a little further away, but this, oops, I'm sorry. No, how do I go in the other direction? There.
Well, you're moving along at least.
I'm showing you this of portrait of Lisa Curtis, which is over here, and I'll get to in a minute. I just wanted you to see the artist. His name is John Singer Sargent, and he's over here. But I wanted you to see the size of the painting because that is what it looks like, and I'll come back to that in a minute talking about. So here we have. This is just exquisite. It's a very imposing portrait, and it's right near the one of women's work. And so I have the students make up stories. It's also right next to, if you're familiar with George Bellows, Stag at Sharky's, where there are men boxing one another. And so the kids make up stories. They talk about what kind of food each of them would eat. You know, the working woman would, they say maybe potatoes or noodles, and the kids will argue with each other, and then they go, do you think she's eating potatoes? And they go, no, she's having like a cocktail, or she's having tea party. So that you can see all the different classes. It's wonderful for social studies too, to see what was going on with different people. Let's see, I want to get into this one right over here.
Marjorie, I just want to say, I love the fact that you've added this information from the museum, because I'm also enjoying very much scrolling down the did you know? And I
Right.
don't know if any of you have taken a moment to read those, but you know, it's a very, very interesting highlight to, you know, it's just like a little secret fact on something that you've seen, but you probably don't know. So thank you for adding that. I think it's great.
Yeah, they're wonderful, and there are little videos on a lot of them as well. So what I want you to see here is this carpeting. It is just loose, the loose brush strokes, but it is just beautiful. You know, it just sets the tone of what kind of a home she lived in. So this woman is Lisa Cole Curtis. She became Mrs. Ralph Curtis. This is a wedding portrait that John Singer Sargent gave to the couple for a wedding gift. They were friends, and what Sargent is known for is his technical brilliance, painting leading generation wealthy people, their portraits. He painted men and women from the aristocracy. He also did in 1890s, he was a painter of Jews, and one of them is the Wertheimer girls. If you ever look that up from the 1920s, he did about 900 portraits. He was an expatriate. He lived in Paris and in Florence. I'm sorry. His work, it's absolutely stunning. If you look at the dress up close again, it looks like it's just anything until you walk away from it, and it is just beautiful. It's like she's having people come into her home, and so that. Oh, I wanted to go back to this. This is Madame X over here, a painting that the same artist did, and it was very controversial. It was at the salon in Paris, and she's wearing a black dress and a lot of skin showing, and it was such a no-no at the time. They made, and because she had her strap was down on her shoulder, they made him take it out of the salon, and he repainted it and put it back up on her shoulder, but it was quite a scandal. Okay, now we're going to a different gallery, and this is the Decorative Arts Gallery. It's up on the second floor, and it is by René Lalique. René Lalique at the time, or before this, was known for making jewelry. He had been to the World's Fair in France, where he was living, and he saw Tiffany. Tiffany had done these amazing fabrique vessels, containers, and with that, right afterwards, Lalique went to New York to Fabergé's, to Tiffany's studio in New York, and learned what he was doing, because they were competitive of one another. And he then evolved into this kind of glass work, doing containers. And this is a vase, and it was blown glass, and it was blown into a mold. And then these wonderful frogs were added, and and it was done with copper was put in it, and it was able to change the glass's color. And it's a small piece. It's really beautiful. It's an interesting small gallery. I don't know if you've been to it or not, but there are many small pieces in there. There's a large vase that a Cleveland family, a Jewish family, donated the vase. It's about a 4-foot vase. So
Marge, I have a question on this. So the black stuff, at first I was going to ask, you said it's mixed with copper, the frog
it's
material?
put on copper. The glass is put on copper.
The glass is, but the black stuff where the frogs are, what is that material? Looks like candy.
It's glass.
Black
Oh,
glass?
it's glass. It's glass, but it turns this green color because of the copper.
Okay, so it's
Otherwise it would
green.
be
Oh, because it doesn't look
glass.
green here. Oh, on my, it looks,
Yeah,
I see.
know. When I had done this with some people yesterday, and they said they couldn't see the green.
I see little bits of green, like just occasional in spots. But this would be perfect if it was green. You could put it on put it on the table for Passover with frogs.
Oh, I thought it was St. Patrick's Day, but for Passover too, it would be great. Yeah, it would. Yeah, I think you should borrow it from the museum for Passover.
Marjorie, I have a question also, Marjorie. Is this the same Lalique who does the sculptures that people collect?
Yes. No, that's Yadro. Are you thinking Yadro?
No, there's a Lalique China.
Like perfume bottles?
Yes.
Right. Same one.
I think my mom has some Lalique that she was
Right,
collecting.
mine too. Okay, about the same time, a very different piece of artwork, and this is Augusta Savage, and I really like including this one. She's one of the very first African-American artists that our museum had purchased. I remember when I was in high school, and I knew that I wanted to, I took art classes at Cleveland Heights High School, and I was very interested in art history, and being at our museum, I always felt like, well, where's all the contemporary? We had no contemporary art in the museum when I was in high school. It was as though life stood still after Impressionism or Expressionism. And so today, the Art Museum is making a concerted effort to get people of color from different cultures, their art in the museum, and women artists as well. So this is Augusta Savage. And it's quite interesting. She was born in Florida to working class family. Her father was, she loved working with clay, and her father had said he was going to beat the clay out of her because he didn't think that was a good profession, or that she couldn't do anything with it. She then went with the great migration with her family to New York, and she was able to go to the Cooper Union with free tuition. She set up her own school in Harlem, and many of the African-American artists took classes with her, like Jacob Lawrence or Gwendolyn Knight, Norman Lewis, who we're going to see some of his work, Romare Bearden. They took classes with her. She was the first African-American member of the National Association of Women Artists. For years, I always thought it was made out of bronze, but it's not. She didn't have money for bronze, so it was plaster, and then she was painted to look like bronze. And that was because of the, negativity and stereotypes and things that she was denied just because of her color. She worked for the WPA, as many of the artists did, particularly abstract expressionists. And it was the first time they were actually getting a weekly, like $30 paycheck to do what they loved to do. This is, at first they thought it was just anybody, but we've come to know that it was probably her nephew. The name of it is Gammon, and it is a name for a street urchin or a young scamp, which is, and it's a beautiful, he just looks sweet, and I love showing all the different views of him.
Marjorie,
Yeah.
I have him as one of my favorites on my Museum of Art app.
Oh, good. Yeah, isn't it? It's
You're getting a
wonderful.
lot of mine.
It's
Yeah.
life size, and
Love it.
he's just that look, that glance he's giving. And when I've taken students there, when I was teaching, I were primarily African American students. I always they appreciated so seeing somebody. And at the time, it was very well thought of, because oftentimes African Americans were like caricatures, or not respectful, the art that was done around them. And she just made it to a beautiful level. Look at the nape of the neck and the hat. I think it's wonderful. So let me go back. I have a short video. I'm going to show you of her working. I was just moving it along. And the cloth that's around it, that's what one does with clay when they're working on it, so that it doesn't dry out. And she was able to capture quite a likeness to whoever she was sculpting. she had won some scholarship to study in Europe, and when they found out she was African American, they took that offer away. She's adding tiny pieces of clay to build up the surface. Oops, I didn't want that. Okay, very different artist. This, even growing up, he was like my most favorite, John Marin. When he was 9 days old, his mother died, and he was raised by two aunts. He is most well known, he's an American artist, most well known for his watercolors. He took the material of watercolor and changed it drastically. It is very impressionistic. He just dances around with a paintbrush. He spent his summers in Maine, and he responded to the weather and season and the vegetation. He did bold dashes and transparent washes. He would put very light, a lot of washes is a color plus a lot of water, and he would just keep building it and building it and building it. He studied with William Chase, the same as Dora Wheeler. And I forgot to tell you about Dora Wheeler. That was, remember the woman in the blue dress with the yellow background? That painting came to the United States because of Jephthah Wade II. Dora Wheeler's family and the Wade family vacationed together every summer. And she knew, she owned the painting, and because she knew that the Wades were so invested in the Cleveland Museum of Art, she donated her portrait to the museum as a thank you to him for his friendship. Anyway, so back to John Marin. He traveled to Europe and found out about the modern artists. That's where he saw the Impressionist artists and was quite changed by them. He traveled in Europe then for 6 years, and he showed his work at the Stieglitz, the Alfred Stieglitz Gallery. If you're familiar with Alfred Stieglitz, that gallery was monumental to the careers of many artists, including George O'Keeffe. That she met him through her work being displayed in his gallery, and they later married. And John Marin's work was elevated and successful in part due to John Stieglitz.
Did you say Stieglitz as in like the photographer?
John Marin, John Stieglitz, the photographer. He had a gallery in New York City, and showcased, yeah. Okay, this piece of artwork, it is a construction of sorts. It is a sculptural environment. It is unfortunately in the lower level where the classrooms are, and myself, along with most every other docent that I know, we can't figure out why curators put this in the basement. It used to be upstairs, and it was a wonderful stop along the way to show students. However, for years now, it's been in the basement, and if a docent wants to share it with a class, if like 20 traipse down the steps to see it, and there's nothing else much to see down there. So you have to really want to show it. But it certainly is well worth it. You might remember, I think it was like 1980, maybe, Red Grooms came to Cleveland, and he did these. I have a book in the other room of his work. You could also Google it. He did Cleveland, and he used Art Institute students to help him put this together. So he found different places. He's done it of other cities too. He goes into the city, like he did Terminal Tower was part of it. He did our stadium as part of it. He did it on buses and bus interior in Cleveland. So let's go into this. It shows the hubbub of New York City. Whoops. What he did, he used 1-point perspective, and this is Grace Church. Whoops. Right here. And right over here. And you can feel the vitality of this. There are all kinds of modes of transportation, taxis and buses. There's a truck carrying other cars. We have a guy listening to a boombox. We have a woman over here. We have an Orthodox man with payas. We have somebody doing street cleaning down in the down into the Great. We have all different stores, and it's all jam-packed with so much energy and so much vitality that it's noisy, and it's fun to have the students look at it and everybody make a sound that they think would be coming out of this, and everybody does it at once, and it's just deafening. It's just a lot of fun. The colors, he just has so much fun, and yeah, you're asking children what it smells like. Or another thing that I like to ask students is, who do you think would like this piece of artwork? And maybe somebody would say, oh, my grandmother, because she loves to go to New York City. Or I've never been to a big city. This is what it looks like. Wow, I'm not sure I want to go to it. And it's built up. It's 12 inches thick. It's actually 71 by 63 and 28 inches in depth. So yeah, it's fun. Okay, Alice Neal, I don't know if any of you are familiar with her work. Her colors are really, really beautiful. They say she has even said that she was influenced by Vincent van Gogh. And if you look at his work with his thick paint and his luscious luminous colors, it looks like it in Alice Neal's work. This one is called Jackie Curtis and Rita Red. It was painted in 1970. Alice Neal loves to find, well, she passed away in 84, but she loved to find people that were unusual and do portraits. She's done many, many portraits. It was interesting. I was listening to a video that her son, she had 4 children, 2 daughters, and then she had 2 sons. And one of the sons said it was the most awful thing being the son of a bohemian person. I became a lawyer, and I'm terribly conservative. I want to have nothing to do with the art scene because my life was so crazy as a child growing up. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. No, let's go this way. I know what I'm doing wrong. Okay. She was friendly with Andy Warhol and his factory, and that's where she met a lot of these characters. And this is an interesting painting. I like to have high school children make up stories, as I said, or younger children too. But one that really struck out with me, we weren't talking about gender or anything. And a group of high schoolers, I let them loose in the contemporary gallery, and I said, find a painting and let's hear your story about it. And so a group of 3 of them said that this was a couple that wanted to adopt a baby, and they were at the adoption agency, and they were just told that they didn't qualify. So I thought that was a really interesting take on it. She is a transvestite, and that he is a transvestite, and she is a lesbian, and Alice Neal just paints people just quirky. Here's somebody with her torn sock. She liked to paint friends, family, lovers, poets, artists. She did a lot of gay people. She did one with a man that she thought had a huge ego, so she painted him with 5 penises. One of her last paintings that she did is a self-portrait, and she's nude, and she's in her 80s. And so that she was so self-revealing to do something like that it's just the way the hair is painted. I just love her painting style. So that is Alice Neal.
Her stuff is great. It looks like stuff I do needlepoint, and it looks like figures they often do in needlepoint. I could see that being there.
This one is another African-American artist. This one, my son-in-law came to check up on me. He was doing okay. Okay. This is Norman Lewis, and then he was very interested in civil rights movement. He is an African-American artist. He was actually painting about the same time that the other abstract expressionists like Jackson Pollock and Jackson Pollock's wife, Lee Krasner, were painting. However, because his race hampered his patronage and his networking, and so he did not get the immediate stardom as the other abstract expressionists, and it took many years until his work was looked at and sought after and thought worthy. He was very, very plagued by racial conflict and the Ku Klux Klan. This is a fairly large painting. It's 48 by 72. We bought it in 2017. And he died in 1979. The name of this is 1960. And I love to just pose that by, well, they have to be either older students or adults. The younger ones have no idea what this would mean. But so looking at it and hearing the 1960, I bet a lot of things are going through your mind. One might be that it's black and white issues, because he was African American, he was dark skinned, and white people. Another thing that people talk about, well, maybe it's the Ku Klux Klan, without having anything specific looking like the Ku Klux Klan. If you know something about history, you could sort of see that he was doing it. At one point, the brushworks are fast and furious. You think of anger, and then another time you could look at it, maybe it's a joyful celebration. One of the things I saw when I first saw this, it reminded me of Tar and Feathers at night, and maybe those feathers were flying. So his work, I really like his work. I find it really very interesting, and it's a good way to talk about civil rights and what's going on with an artist's view. So we're almost done. Okie doke. This is another new piece. We got this in, when did we get it? Last year. I think we got it last year, right before COVID. And it's called Las Meninas. And it is by an African-American artist. As I said, we are trying to get as many non-white male people's work represented in our art museum. And this was in the contemporary gallery. I am not sure it will be there. Right now, the contemporary gallery is closed, and it will be closed for some time. They're re-hanging and re-putting putting in all kinds of different things. So who knows if it'll be there. But this came right about the Me Too movement. And let me just go into this. She was born in Chicago in 1967 to Jamaican parents. Right now she works in Brooklyn. Her interests are African art, performance, feminism, marginalization of women of color. And right when the Me Too movement came out, if you see her hands on her hips like that, it made me just think that she's saying bug off to some guy, leave me alone. I'm too strong and powerful for you. She uses a lot of things from history. If you look over here, at first I thought those were cowrie shells, but upon closer examination, they're flowers, delicate flowers made of porcelain, which is a very fine clay. The body itself is done in terracotta, which is a red clay. This is a white clay. And what you do is roll out a very thin piece of clay and just roll it. And that's how she did this. And she did it in the whole inside of the head and on the outside of the head. Oftentimes her portraits are faceless. They don't have faces, or it's some kind of a very generic face that it could be anybody. She wants everybody to be able to relate to it. So these look like the cowrie shells of Africa. I thought was very interesting. Another thing, whoops, is the painted body. As I said, it's red terracotta, and it is painted white in many different groups. In Africa, they use body painting. And so that could be one reason why she did it. Perhaps it's because of people trying to pass for white, or the Black conflict with white. She has lots and lots of meaning in her work. And then finally, this skirt is made out of raffia. It's a very large skirt made of raffia. And when it was originally placed, that one of Alice Neal was right back. Whoops, where's my point? Was right over here. So you had Alice Neal's characters, and then you had her, and right over here was the nude by Pearlstein. So it was a very interesting little triangle of objects. Things that she got her ideas from. Can you see, because of your faces are here, you can see all of this? Okay. One of the places where she got her inspiration is from Diego Velázquez's Las Meninas, which is the title of her work also. And many artists were this was pivotal. 1656, it was because, first of all, the artists, this is a king, his daughter, and the king and queen are actually over here. Probably unusual that they're standing where we were. So that was a very unusual placement. And to have the artists be in a royal painting was also very, very unusual. So she included that in her work, the title, and also the big skirt, if you look at it. This is a Cameroon building called the Muscan, and it's made out of red clay. And a lot of her work has this beehive shape. And so she studied the history of Africa and African art. If you've been to New York lately, on the High Line, and I'm not sure if it's still there, is a huge sculpture of hers, of a woman, a portrait, a bust of someone, and you'll see this shape also. It's interesting to look up her stuff. She does massive, enormous size work. And then lastly, she was also very influenced by Candomblé, which is a Brazilian religion, and they're dancing. They dance so much that they get into a frenzy of spirituality. They had to hide. It was brought over to Brazil from Africa, and it's part of the African diaspora. It was a part of Western African traditions with Roman Catholicism, but whenever anybody from Brazil, the Roman Catholics would come, they would have to hide all of their artifacts. So working in disguise, it was another issue for her, and of course of the big skirts as well in her work. And lastly, this is my last one. This is by a German artist by the name of Anselm Kiefer, and it is also in the contemporary gallery. It's off to a side, so if you don't really go into the small gallery, you might miss it. It's called Lot's Wife, and he wrote right down here, Lot's Wife. It is done by a man who was born in 1945, as I said, Germany. He's a painter and sculptor, and he was very, very taken by the problems of Germans, and he has taken it upon himself that's a lot of his work dealing with that, the horrors of it. He's interested in human tragedy and destruction. Lot's wife turned around and she turned to salt, and he's used salt in here. He used oil paint, ash, stucco, linseed oil, Palmer emulsion, salt, copper heating elements, as you can see. Whoops, sorry about that. Let me get some close-ups for you of this. You know, without having any people from the Holocaust, without any photographs, it is just these railroad tracks that go nowhere. There's a wire over here. There's plywood. You can see that the tracks just sort of go nowhere. There's like an explosion there. The paint is constantly cracking off, and the curators send pictures to him and ask him if he wants it put back on, glued back on or not, or if he wants to add something more to it, because it's constantly in flux, constantly changing. You can see from, it says Lot's Frau over here. It's constantly chipping off, showing God's destruction. And yeah, it's very interesting to hear people talking about it. So just some other things to talk about when you're going to the museum. You could do like a speech bubble. What do you think that person is saying? Or who do you think would like this piece of artwork? If you go with your friends or grandchildren, look for relationships, find 2 or 3 things in a gallery and have them have a talk with each other. Another thing would be, what do you think is going to happen next? How would you change this piece of artwork? What would you add to it? What if we added the color red or green to it? What do you think would happen? The nice thing about talking about art, and I always stress this when I was teaching, is there's no right or wrong. In a math class, 2 + 2 has to be 4, but in art class, your opinions and your ideas, we explore how we feel about things, how we think about things. within this. You can write a poem, maybe come up with 5 to 10 words, and then to put them into 2 to 4 lines. I don't know. Any questions? Yeah,
Me?
yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
On that painting of the woman hanging the clothes, I know we probably can't go back to see it, but there was a little piece underneath
to
that it almost looked like it was ice. So I was just wondering what time of year she was hanging the clothes.
No.
She didn't have a coat on, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't winter. It was just, it
I'm
just,
pretty sure it's spring because, well, I'll check it again, but I've often talked to people, they can almost smell the spring air. So,
okay.
Let's-
I think it was just the
I could be
paint,
wrong.
it just,
that's why it's so much fun to go to the museum with other people, because
Yeah.
different people see different things.
I love the last one.
there
that-
is.
Yeah,
There.
there it is.
It's the shadow of the laundry on the
Okay.
red brick. And where there's sun, it looks lighter. Like here,
No,
It was-
I'm actually on the right, more like underneath her arm. See her arm? Her arm, I'm pointing to, you can't see it. Her
Wait.
arm, and then there's a piece of white, and then under, there's a kind of gray area. That looked like ice to me.
I think that's probably a
Let's
basket
get-
of laundry.
Maybe.
That was the white of the basket of the
Okay.
laundry, the garments.
That's, yeah, see, there's like, that's it. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those things. Yeah, that's it.
Those are the
That area.
corset strings.
it's the law, he's doing it in a very impressionistic
Yeah, that's
style,
okay.
where the brush is very loose.
Got it.
You know,
To me, it looked like a big ice cube.
Oh, no, of course. The very last piece I loved because we didn't talk about it. And I have to say your presentation was amazing. And I can't believe how many of your favorites are my favorites. But the last one, I mean, what I loved about all of your selection was there is a wonderful opportunity to talk about point of view, where you see the photo, the piece, and what it makes you think of. I'm often struck by the railroad tracks because is it you're coming to the end, or are you leaving and it is the end? And I think for students these days and everything that is going on, it's just an incredible point of view. What is your point of view and where do you see it? So I especially love that. I'm looking at the chat to see if there are any
Yeah, I highly recommend, if you don't know to go into this little gallery, you'll miss it.
right. Yeah. Very,
Yeah,
very.
Carolyn?
Yeah, I wanted to say something also about the laundry, the lady with the clothesline. I'm coming from a different perspective. I taught social studies, U.S. history, and there are pictures in the history books of the immigrants hanging their laundry on clotheslines between the tenement buildings. And what you're not seeing in that picture is how filthy it was below that clothesline. Okay. And so when I saw that picture, it took me back to the Gilded Age where things were not, we told the kids, it's called the Gilded Age, but things are not, they're not always as they appear. There was a lot of poverty and a lot of immigrants. And then you have these people at the top who would never be hanging their own clothes. But there are pictures like that from photographers who took pictures of the immigrants at the time. And the other thing I wanted to mention was my daughter works at the Western Reserve Historical Society right across the street, the Cleveland History Center from the Art Museum. And they have a fashion display, and they had a while back the socialites of Cleveland and the dresses they wore when they went out and stuff. And it was very similar to that one woman with the fancy dress who was in the very large portrait. And it's funny how locally we could go see that dress or something very similar in person. And so it's just really interesting how things connect. Very interesting. Those were my favorites.
Going to the art museum for a social studies teacher is just, wonderful.
Right.
Right. Or I used to suggest to English teachers, to use these reproductions of artwork for students to write stories.
Fantastic.
Good.
Okay, any other questions? Marjorie, I want to thank you so much, and I want to tell you, you are so amazing because not only did you do this presentation superbly, but you used so many techniques between your video and you're going back and forth and you zooming in. I hope you are feeling very accomplished because you've accomplished something that many other people have not done in their presentations. So really kudos to you. I mean,
It's a stretch for me.
just
So
amazing.
yes, and when things open up more at the museum, if you'd like to go on a tour, I'm happy to do that.
I would like to go on a tour and I'm going to put it on my calendar so I don't forget. Because I understand now, actually, I was in another Zoom for the Maltz Museum and they have suggested if you need a place to go right now, the new exhibit on the pieces from storage.
Oh, it's wonderful. Oh my God.
Absolutely outstanding. And the nice thing about the museum is nobody is there.
Right.
So
It
it is
was pretty empty and the space is so
totally
big.
safe. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely we'll go.
Have a good day, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Enough.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.